Commander Zixthar stared at the dying lights on her ship's control panel. Each flickering display told the same terrible story. Her people were running out of time. The bridge around her buzzed with quiet activity. Her crew worked at their stations, but she could see the fear in their large, dark eyes. The Cathari had been running for 3 months now. 3 months since the Vorthan Empire had attacked their home world. 3 months since everything they knew had burned. "Commander," her tactical officer Render called softly. "The biohull is failing on Deck 7. We've lost another section." Zixthara closed her eyes for a moment. Their ships were living things, grown rather than built. When they were healthy, the biohulls could heal small damage on their own. But these ships had been hurt too badly and too often. Now they were slowly dying and taking her people with them. "How many ships have we lost today?" she asked. "2 more, Commander." The soft wind couldn't keep her life support running. The crew transferred to other ships before she went dark. That made 15 ships lost to system failure. Not destroyed in battle, just worn down until they could no longer sustain life. The Vorthans didn't even need to chase them anymore. They were dying on their own. "Commander," the voice came from her science officer, Cathara. The young Cathari sounded excited. "I found something in the old database. A planet. It might help us." Zixthara moved to Cathara's station. The young officer was pulling up old files from their exploration archives. These were records from before the war, when Cathari ships had traveled far from home, just to learn about the galaxy. "It's called Earth," Cathara said. "The people there are called humans. The survey was done 50 years ago. They're a young species, barely past their first nuclear weapons. What good does that do us?" Render asked from his station. "A primitive world can't help repair bioships." But Cathara was shaking her head. "Look at this, though." The survey team noted something strange. These humans survived something called a Cold War. They built enough nuclear weapons to destroy their own planet 10 times over. But they never used them. They pulled back from the edge somehow. Zixthara studied the data. The planet was small, blue and green, with large oceans. The humans had only recently started exploring their own solar system. Their technology was crude compared to galactic standards. But they were still alive, which was more than could be said for many species who had faced similar tests. "How far?" she asked. 6 days if we push the engines." "But Commander, half our ships might not make it. The biocores are too damaged." Zixthara looked around her bridge. Her crew was dying slowly. The young ones were getting sick from breathing recycled air that the failing biofilters couldn't clean properly. They had tried 17 different worlds in the past month. All empty. All unable to provide what they needed. "The Vorthans?" she asked. "Still following. Our scout ship reports they're 4 days behind us." 4 days. If they stopped at Earth, they would have maybe 2 days before the Vorthan fleet arrived. 2 days to somehow repair ships that needed weeks of work. It was hopeless, but what choice did they have? "Set course for Earth," she ordered. The journey took exactly 6 days. 3 more ships failed along the way. The crews were rescued, but now over 400 Cathari were crammed into ships meant for smaller numbers. The air was getting thin. The food production systems were failing faster than they could be repaired. When Earth's yellow sun appeared on their screens, Zixthara felt no relief. Only the weight of certain defeat. Even if the humans were friendly, how could such a primitive species help them? "Commander, we're being scanned," Render reported. "Multiple sources. They've detected us." "Any weapons firing?" "No, but..." "Commander, I'm getting communication attempts." "Lots of them. Different sources, different signals." Zixthara frowned. Usually when a species detected unknown ships, they either ran or prepared to fight. They didn't try to talk first. Put it through. The voice that came over the speakers was strange. Flat and quick, but somehow warm. Unknown vessels. This is Earth Defense Command. We're detecting hull damage and life support failures on several of your ships. Do you need assistance? Zixthara stared at the speaker. Do you need assistance? Not, who are you? Or state your intentions. The humans had looked at their damaged ships and offered help first. Cathara, are you getting this right? They're offering help? Yes, Commander. And there's more. I'm getting signals from all over their planet. They're mobilizing something, but not weapons. Ships, yes, but also medical teams? Engineering crews? Zixthara's hands trembled slightly as she opened a channel. Earth Defense Command. This is Commander Zixthara of the Cathari refugee fleet. Yes, we need assistance. Our ships are dying. Understood, Commander. I'm Admiral Chun. We're scrambling repair ships now. Can your vessels make it to the coordinates we're sending you? Coordinates appeared on their screens. The humans were directing them toward a series of structures orbiting their planet. They looked like industrial platforms built for working on ships. Admiral Chun, Zixthara said carefully, you should know that we are being pursued. A hostile fleet will arrive in approximately 2 days. We understand if you cannot. Commander, the human voice interrupted. Let us worry about that. Right now, your people need help, and that's what matters. We'll figure out the rest as we go. As the Cathari fleet limped toward the human orbital facilities, Zixthara watched dozens of human ships launch from the planet below. They were crude-looking vessels, all metal and sharp angles. But they moved with purpose and skill. Commander, Render said quietly, what kind of species offers help to strangers when those strangers bring danger with them? Zixthara watched the human ships forming up around her fleet, escorting them to safety. I don't know, Render. But maybe we're about to find out. The first human ships reached them an hour later. The communications were immediate and direct. Engineers asking about hull composition. Doctors requesting information about Cathari biology. Scientists excited about bioship technology, but focused on how to repair it, not steal it. As they approached the orbital platforms, Zixthara saw something that made her heart skip. The humans were already modifying their facilities. In just a few hours, they had adapted their equipment to handle bioships. They had studied the scanning data and figured out what was needed. All ships, she broadcast to her fleet, prepare for docking. And remember, we came here as strangers seeking help. Let's see what these humans are really made of. Admiral Sarah Chun had been in charge of Earth's orbital defense for 8 years. In that time, she had planned for many things. Asteroid impacts, solar flares, even the possibility of hostile alien contact. But she had never planned for refugees. Admiral, the lead ship is requesting permission to dock at Platform 7, her communications officer reported. Granted. And Lieutenant Morrison? Make sure our medical teams are ready. Those life support readings don't look good. Chun watched through the observation windows as the alien ships approached. She had seen the initial scans. These vessels were like nothing in human experience. They seemed to be alive somehow, with whole surfaces that moved and shifted like breathing skin. Some sections glowed with soft light while others looked dark and dead. Admiral, Dr. James Morrison's voice came over the comm. I've been studying the biological data they transmitted. These beings are carbon-based, but their blood chemistry is completely different. And some of their young are showing signs of severe poisoning. Poisoning from what? Near as I can tell, their ships filter their air using living organisms. When the ships got damaged, the filter system started failing. They've been breathing toxins for weeks. Chun closed her eyes briefly. Refugees running from some kind of war, slowly dying because their living ships were too damaged to keep them alive. Doctor, what do you need? Time and samples. If I can understand how their biology works, I might be able to help. But I need to examine both them and their ship systems. You'll get both. The docking process took 3 hours. Human engineers worked alongside Cathari crew members, both sides struggling to understand each other's technology. The language barriers were overcome quickly using translation software, but the technical differences were enormous. Chief Engineer Rosa Delgado found herself staring at a Cathari ship's power core. It wasn't a reactor or an engine. It was a living organism the size of a small building, pulsing with bioelectric energy. How long has it been since this thing ate? She asked the Cathari engineer working beside her. Vector looked confused for a moment, then understood. Fed, yes. 3 weeks? The food synthesis systems failed. Delgado shook her head. It's starving. That's why your power systems are failing. She turned to her team. Rodriguez, get me everything you can find about bioenergy conversion. Thompson, start working on some kind of nutrient solution. This poor thing is dying of hunger. Meanwhile, Dr. Morrison was having his own revelations. The Cathari who had volunteered for medical examination were unlike anything he had ever seen. Tall and slim, with large dark eyes and skin that seemed to shimmer slightly in the light. But more interesting was how they seemed to be connected to each other. Commander Zixthara, he said to the Cathari leader, when one of your people experiences something, do the others know about it? To some degree, yes. We share thoughts and feelings through what you might call a biological network. It helps us work together on our ships. Morrison nodded. That explained how their crews could operate such complex living vessels. But it also meant that when some of them were sick, all of them felt it. The suffering was shared by everyone. Doctor, Zixthara continued, your people have been very kind. But you should know that our pursuers will arrive soon. The Vorthans show no mercy to those who help their enemies. Tell me about these Vorthans. Zixthara's expression grew dark. They are an empire built on conquest. Any species that refuses to surrender completely is destroyed. Not enslaved, destroyed. They have ended 17 civilizations in the past century. Morrison stopped working and looked at her directly. Genocide. Yes, that is your word for it. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then he activated his comm unit. Admiral Chun, please come to Medical Bay 3. There's something you need to hear. When Admiral Chun arrived, Morrison quickly explained what he had learned. Chun listened without interrupting, her expression growing harder with each detail. So these Vorthans, she said finally, they don't just conquer. They completely destroy any species that won't submit. Yes, Zixthara said. We refused to surrender our independence. So they came to end us entirely. My people are all that remain of our civilization. Chun was quiet for a long time. Then she looked directly at Zixthara. Commander, how long do we have before they arrive? Perhaps 36 hours. And how big is their fleet? 60 ships. All military. All designed for destruction. Chun nodded slowly. Commander, I need to ask you something important. If we help you repair your ships, will you be able to escape? Or will they just hunt you down again? Zixthara looked surprised by the question. Admiral, even repaired, we are not a military fleet. We are refugees with some defensive weapons. We cannot fight a force like that. I wasn't asking about you fighting them alone. The meaning of Chun's words slowly became clear to Zixthara. Admiral, your people have just discovered they are not alone in the galaxy. You should be focused on protecting Earth, not getting involved in an alien war. Chun smiled, but it was not a warm expression. Commander, you've just told me that somewhere out there is a group that thinks genocide is acceptable policy. That makes it our war too. Over the next 18 hours, something remarkable happened. The repair work continued, but it began to change into something else. Human engineers didn't just fix the bioships. They improved them. Chief Delgado discovered that human computer systems could interface directly with Cathari biocomputers, creating hybrid systems that were faster and more flexible than either technology alone. Dr. Morrison found that human medical knowledge, combined with Cathari biological expertise, could solve problems neither species could handle separately. Most importantly, Admiral Chen began integrating human crews with Cathari ships. Volunteers lined up for the biomodification procedures that would let them work with the living vessels. When asked why they were willing to undergo dangerous alien medical procedures to help people they had just met, the answers were simple. Because it's right, said Lieutenant Torres. The first human to successfully link with a Cathari biocomputer. Because genocide is wrong, no matter who's doing it, said Engineer Park. As she learned to operate living ship systems. Because sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, said Medical Technician Williams. Working to save Cathari children, she couldn't even pronounce the names of Dodd as the deadline approached. Chung called Zixthara to the main observation deck. Below them, the Cathari fleet was almost unrecognizable. The ships still looked alive, but now they also gleamed with new armor plating. Human weapon systems had been integrated with Cathari biodefenses. Hybrid crews were running practice drills that amazed both species with their efficiency. Commander, Chun said, your people came here as refugees looking for basic repairs. Yes, well, you're not refugees anymore. As of now, you're allies. And those ships down there? They're not just repaired. They're ready for war. Zixthara stared at the transformed fleet. Admiral, what have your people done? Chen's expression was grim but determined. What we always do when someone tries to commit genocide, Commander. We stopped them. The sensor alarms began to sound. The Vorthan fleet had arrived. The transformation had taken 36 hours. Chief Engineer Rosa Delgado had not slept for a single minute of that time. She stood in the biocore chamber of the Cathari flagship, watching something that should have been impossible. Human neural interfaces were directly connected to the ship's living computer system. The massive organic brain that controlled the vessel was now working in partnership with human artificial intelligence. Talk to me. Lieutenant Torres, she said into her comm. It's incredible. Chief, came the response from the bridge. I can feel the ship's thoughts. But it's more than that. The AI is learning from the biocomputer, and the biocomputer is learning from the AI. They're making each other smarter. Delgado nodded. When they had first tried to integrate human technology with Cathari biosystems, everyone expected problems. The two approaches to space travel were completely different. Humans built machines to serve them. Cathari grew partners to work with them, but somehow, the combination worked better than either system alone. Chief, called Engineer Park from across the chamber. You need to see this. Delgado moved to Park Station, where the young engineer was monitoring the ship's repair systems. The biohull was not just healing itself anymore. It was actually improving, growing stronger and more flexible than before. How is that possible? The human nano-repair systems are teaching the biohull new patterns, Park explained. It's learning to incorporate metallic structures without losing its living properties. Look at this section here. On the screen, Delgado could see whole sections that gleamed like metal but moved and flexed like living tissue. The ship was becoming something new. Not fully biological like original Cathari vessels. Not purely mechanical like human ships. Something in between that seemed to have the advantages of both. Across the orbital platform, Dr. Morrison was making his own discoveries. The medical bay was full of both humans and Cathari. working together to solve problems neither species could have handled alone. "Doctor," said medical technician Williams, "the biomodification procedure on Ensign Jackson was successful. He's now able to interface directly with Cathari life support systems." Morrison checked the readings. Jackson, a young human volunteer, was lying unconscious while alien biological systems integrated with his nervous system. It was incredibly dangerous. They had no idea what the long-term effects might be. But Jackson had volunteered anyway. Why? Morrison had asked him before the procedure. "Because those kids are dying," Jackson had said simply. "And this might save them." Now Jackson would be able to monitor and repair Cathari life support systems from the inside. His human intuition, combined with Cathari biological knowledge, would make him uniquely qualified to keep hybrid crews alive. "Dr. Morrison," said Cathara, the young Cathari scientist, "I have been studying human medical techniques. Your approach to emergency surgery is very different from ours." "How so?" "We focus on working with the body's natural healing. You focus on fixing what is broken, even if it means forcing the body to accept changes. Both approaches have advantages." Morrison smiled. "Want to try combining them?" The result was a new form of medical treatment that was part surgery, part biological engineering. Human surgical techniques guided by Cathari understanding of how living systems wanted to heal themselves. They saved 3 Cathari children who would have died from system poisoning, and helped 2 human volunteers recover from biomodification procedures that had gone wrong. But the most important changes were happening in the command centers. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the hybrid flagship, watching as human and Cathari officers worked side by side. The integration was remarkable. Human quick thinking and adaptability combined with Cathari shared consciousness and biological intuition. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Torres. His eyes closed as he interfaced with the ship's biocomputer. "I'm getting tactical data from all ships in the fleet. The bio-network is sharing information faster than any communication system we've ever built." Commander Zixthara, standing beside him, nodded. "And your tactical computers are processing that information in ways we never could. Together, we can see patterns in space combat that neither species could detect alone." Chun pulled up the fleet status display. 28 ships, all transformed. The smallest was twice as powerful as it had been before the humans arrived. The largest was something entirely new, a bioship with human weapons, human armor, and hybrid crews that could think and react faster than anything else in known space. "Admiral," called the communications officer, "we're getting long-range sensor readings. The Vorthan fleet has entered the outer system." "How many ships?" 60, as the commander predicted. "All military vessels. They're moving in standard attack formation." Chun nodded. "Time until they reach us?" 4 hours, Admiral. 4 hours to test systems that had never been used in combat. 4 hours to see if the most unlikely alliance in galactic history could actually work. "Commander Zixthara," Chun said, "what do the Vorthans expect to find when they get here?" "A defeated refugee fleet. Easy targets for destruction. And instead?" Zixthara looked at the display showing their transformed ships. Hybrid crews were running final system checks. Weapons that combined human firepower with Cathari biological adaptation were coming online. The bio-network was connecting all ships into a single, unified fighting force. Instead, they will find something they have never encountered before, she said. Chun smiled grimly. "Good. Let's make sure they remember this lesson." The final preparations took 3 hours. Human volunteers continued to undergo biomodification procedures right up until the last moment. Cathari crew members learned to operate human weapon systems they had never seen before. Engineers on both sides worked to integrate technologies that had developed on opposite sides of the galaxy. Most remarkably, The crews themselves were changing. Humans plugged into the Cathari bio-network found themselves thinking and feeling as part of a larger group consciousness. Cathari, working with human computer systems, discovered new ways of processing information and making quick decisions. Admiral, Lieutenant Torres reported, "All ships report ready for combat." "But Admiral, I need to tell you something. Being connected to the bio-network, feeling what the Cathari feel, I understand now why they couldn't surrender to the Vorthans." "What do you mean?" "When you're part of a group consciousness like this, the idea of one group completely destroying another isn't just wrong. It's impossible to even think about. For the Cathari, genocide isn't just evil. It's literally unthinkable." Chun understood. The Cathari hadn't refused to surrender because they were stubborn. They had refused because their entire way of thinking made the Vorthan demands impossible to accept. "And that's why they need our help," she said. "No, Admiral," Torres said, opening his eyes and looking directly at her. "That's why we need to help them. Because if we don't stop the Vorthans here, they'll keep destroying species until they find one that can't be destroyed. And that might be us." The sensor alarms began to sound again. The Vorthan fleet was approaching the inner system. "All ships," Chun broadcast on the combined human-Cathari network. "This is Admiral Chun. Today we fight not just for Earth or for the Cathari. We fight for the idea that different species can work together instead of destroying each other. Show them what that cooperation can accomplish." The hybrid fleet moved to intercept. 28 ships against 60. But these were not the same ships that had limped into Earth orbit as refugees. These were something new. Something that combined the best of two very different civilizations. As they moved into formation, the bio-network hummed with shared thoughts and feelings. Human determination and Cathari compassion flowed together. Individual crews became part of a larger whole, while still keeping their unique strengths. Fleet Admiral Korthvan of the Vorthan Empire, Chun broadcast on an open channel. "You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately." The response came back quickly, full of arrogance. "Primitive species, stand aside. We have come for the Cathari criminals. Do not interfere, or you will share their fate." Chun looked at Commander Zixthara, who nodded grimly. "Fleet Admiral Korthvan," Chun replied, "you've made a mistake. You came here expecting to destroy refugees. Instead, you found allies. And we're about to show you the difference." Fleet Admiral Korthvan had destroyed 17 civilizations in his military career. He knew what defeat looked like. He also knew what easy victory looked like. This should have been an easy victory. The sensor reading showed only 28 ships opposing his force of 60. According to his intelligence, the Cathari refugees had been running for months with damaged vessels and failing systems. Even if the primitive humans were helping them, how much could a species that had barely left their own planet accomplish? "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the enemy ships are moving into attack formation." "But sir, these readings are strange." "Strange how?" "The ships appeared to be Cathari biovessels, but they're showing energy signatures I've never seen before. And their movement patterns. They're too coordinated. It's like they're all being controlled by a single mind." Korthman studied the display. The enemy ships were indeed moving with unusual precision. Cathari vessels were normally unpredictable in combat, because their biocomputers made decisions differently than mechanical systems. But these ships were moving like parts of a single organism. "No matter," he said. 60 ships against 28. Even if they are fully repaired, we still have overwhelming advantage. All ships, attack formation. Destroy them quickly." The first exchange of fire shattered everything. Korthvan thought he knew about space combat. His ships opened fire with standard Vorthan plasma weapons. The beams should have overwhelmed any Cathari bioshields within seconds. Instead, The enemy shields seemed to adapt in real time. Where the first shots had been absorbed with difficulty, the second and third shots were turned away easily. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Sir, their shields are learning from our weapons. Each shot makes them stronger against that type of energy." On the hybrid flagship, Lieutenant Torres felt the battle through the bio-network like a living thing. Every shot fired, every shield impact, every tactical decision flowed through the shared consciousness that connected all the allied ships. "They're using standard plasma weapons," he reported to Admiral Chun. "The bioshields are adapting quickly. Weapon status? All human weapon systems ready." "But Admiral, the bio-network is suggesting something. Instead of firing all at once, it wants to use a pattern attack." Chun frowned. "Explain." Commander Zixthora answered. "In the bio-network, individual thoughts combine to create something larger. The ships want to do the same thing with weapons fire. Not just attacking as individual vessels, but creating a pattern that's more than the sum of its parts. Do it." The hybrid fleet's response was unlike anything ever seen in galactic warfare. Instead of each ship firing independently, the 28 vessels fired in a complex, interwoven pattern. Human weapons and Kithari bioweapons combined in ways that amplified each other's effects. Where a human laser beam struck a Vorthan shield, Kithari bioenergy followed, using the laser's frequency as a guide to penetrate the shield completely. Where Kithari bioweapons weakened enemy armor, human kinetic weapons hit with devastating precision. "Sir," the Vorthan tactical officer called out in panic. "We've lost 3 ships." "And sir, the enemy weapons are adapting too. Each time they fire, they're learning how to hurt us better." Korthvan watched in disbelief as his overwhelming force began to crumble. The enemy ships moved like they were dancing, each one protecting the others while striking with impossible coordination. When his ships tried to focus fire on single targets, the other enemy vessels would instantly adjust their positions to intercept the attacks. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Sir, it appears their crews are sharing information instantly across all ships. They're fighting like a single organism with 28 bodies." But the real shock came when the enemy ships began to repair themselves during combat. Chief Engineer Delgado watched through the bio-network as Vorthan fire damaged one of their vessels. Immediately, the other ships in the formation adjusted their positions to protect the damaged vessel while its biohull began healing itself. "Torres," she called. "Can the bio-network speed up the healing process?" "Already on it, Chief. I'm redirecting power from our weapons to boost the healing beam we're sending to the damaged ship." Within minutes, the damaged vessel was back at full strength and rejoining the attack. The Vorthans had never seen anything like it. Ships that should have been destroyed were healing and returning to battle. "Admiral Korthvan," came a transmission from one of his ship commanders. "We need to withdraw. These ships, they don't fight like anything we've ever encountered. When we damage them, they heal. When we adapt our weapons, they adapt faster. And that coordination, it's impossible." Korthvan looked at his tactical display. He had started with 60 ships. Now he had 43. The enemy still had all 28 of their vessels, several of which had been damaged and repaired multiple times. "All ships, fall back to long-range formation," he ordered. "Use heavy weapons. Destroy them before they can adapt." The Vorthan fleet pulled back and began firing their most powerful weapons. Planet-killing energy beams that could crack continents lanced out toward the hybrid fleet. But the bio-network had been learning throughout the entire battle. "Admiral," Lieutenant Torres said, his voice filled with awe, "the network knows what they're going to do. It can feel the energy building in their weapons before they fire. Evasive maneuvers?" "Better than that, Admiral," The network wants to turn their own weapons against them. What happened next would be studied by military strategists for generations. The hybrid fleet didn't try to dodge the massive energy beams. Instead, they used their bioshields to absorb and redirect the energy. Cathari biotechnology had always been able to convert energy from one form to another. Human computer systems could calculate trajectories and targeting solutions with incredible precision. Combined, they turned the Vorthons' planet-killing weapons into a weapon against the Vorthons themselves. The energy beams struck the hybrid fleet's bioshields and were absorbed, converted, and redirected back at the Vorthon ships with devastating effect. 3 Vorthon vessels were destroyed instantly by their own weapons. "Impossible!" Korthvan shouted. "Fall back. All ships, full retreat." But it was too late. The hybrid fleet had learned everything they needed to know about Vorthon weapons and tactics. They pursued the fleeing ships with deadly efficiency. Dr. Morrison, monitoring the bio-network from the medical bay, was amazed by what he was witnessing. "The network isn't just sharing tactical information," he reported to Admiral Chun. "It's sharing emotions. Every human crew member can feel the Cathari's determination to protect their young. Every Cathari can feel the human anger at genocide. It's making them fight as one people instead of 2 species." The battle lasted 4 more hours, but the outcome was never in doubt after those first exchanges. The Vorthons had brought a massive fleet to destroy helpless refugees. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that learned from every attack, healed from every wound, and fought with a unity they couldn't understand. When it was over, only 7 Vorthon ships remained. Admiral Korthvan's flagship was damaged but intact, along with 6 escort vessels. "Admiral Korthvan," Admiral Chun broadcast on an open channel, "you are being allowed to retreat for one reason only. You're going to carry a message back to your empire." "What message?" came the bitter reply. "The message that genocide ends here. Every species your empire has enslaved, every world you've conquered, we're coming to set them free. And if you try to stop us, you'll face the same thing you face today." Korthvan looked at his tactical display one more time. 28 enemy ships, all still functional. 53 of his own ships destroyed or disabled. The most one-sided defeat in Vorthon military history. "What are you?" he asked. Commander Zixthara answered. "We are what happens when different species choose to help each other instead of destroying each other. Remember that when you make your report." The 7 surviving Vorthon ships fled into deep space, carrying news of a defeat that would shake the Empire to its core. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the hybrid flagship, watching the enemy retreat. Around her, human and Cathari officers worked together as if they had been doing so for years instead of days. "Admiral," Lieutenant Torres said, "the bio-network wants to know what we do next." Chun smiled. "Next, Lieutenant, we keep our promise. We're going to free every world the Vorthons have conquered." Commander Zixthara looked at her in amazement. "Admiral, do you understand what you're suggesting? The Vorthon Empire controls hundreds of worlds. They have thousands of ships." "Commander," Chun replied, "do you understand what we just proved? When people work together, instead of trying to destroy each other, they become something more powerful than any empire. Those Vorthons just learned that lesson. Now we're going to teach it to the rest of the galaxy." 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy was a very different place. Emperor Vorthka sat in his throne room on the imperial capital world, reading reports that grew worse each day. Another system had been liberated. Another slave species had joined the growing alliance. Another piece of his 1,000-year empire had crumbled away. "How many ships have we lost this week?" he asked his military advisor. 47, my emperor. But it's not just the ships. 3 more species have switched sides. They're not just accepting liberation. They're actively helping the Alliance free other worlds. The Emperor stared at the galactic map that dominated one wall of his throne room. Red markers showed Imperial territory. Blue markers showed Alliance territory. 6 months ago, the map had been almost entirely red. Now, nearly half the galaxy was blue, and more systems were changing every day. Explain to me again how this is possible. His advisor, a veteran of dozens of conquered worlds, struggled to find words. My Emperor, they fight differently than any enemy we've ever faced. When we destroy one of their ships, 3 more appear to take its place. Species we conquered decades ago are somehow building fleets stronger than anything they ever had before. And their technology? It gets better every time we fight them. They study our weapons and develop countermeasures within days. They share their technological advances with every species that joins them. A race that was using stone tools last year is now flying ships that can match our best vessels. The Emperor walked to his window and looked out at the capital city below. For 1,000 years, this planet had been the center of the greatest empire in galactic history. Tribute from hundreds of worlds had built the magnificent towers and monuments that stretched to the horizon. The fear and obedience of countless species had maintained order across the galaxy. Now, that empire was falling apart, not because of military defeat, but because of something the Emperor had never considered possible: willing cooperation between different species. On the liberated world of Kethavala, former Vorthan slave world, Dr. Morrison was witnessing something extraordinary. The planet's native species, the Keth, had been reduced to subsistence farming under Vorthan rule. Their technology had been stripped away, their culture suppressed. Their population kept barely alive to provide labor. But now, 6 months after liberation, Kethavala was thriving. "Doctor," said Victhara, the Keth planetary leader, "your people's agricultural techniques have increased our food production by 300%. Combined with Cathari bioengineering, we can feed not just our own people, but refugees from 3 other liberated worlds." Morrison smiled as he looked out over the vast farms that covered the planet's main continent. Human farming knowledge, Cathari biotechnology, and Keth understanding of their own planet's ecology had combined to create an agricultural system more productive than anything any of the Dayrave 3 species could have built alone. "That's not the remarkable part," Morrison said. "The remarkable part is that 6 months ago, your species didn't trust anyone who wasn't Keth. The Cathari had never shared their biotechnology with anyone, and we humans had never even imagined working with alien species. Now look at us." Indeed, the farms below were tended by mixed crews of humans, Cathari, and Keth working together as if they had been doing so for generations. Children from all 3 species played together in the fields, learning each other's languages and customs naturally. But Kethavala was just one example. Similar transformations were happening throughout Alliance space on the Korath homeworld. Human engineering had combined with Korath mineral expertise to build space elevators that could lift entire cities into orbit. The Korath, who had been miners and diggers under Vorthan rule, were now building some of the most advanced space construction projects in the galaxy. On Tith Prime, Cathari biotechnology had helped the insectoid Tith develop new forms of hive mind communication that could coordinate entire planetary populations. The Tith, in return, had shared their understanding of swarm tactics, creating new forms of space combat that made Alliance fleets incredibly difficult to defeat. Admiral Chum stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship, reviewing the latest reports from across liberated space. The ship itself was a marvel that represented everything the Alliance had become. Built using technologies from 15 different species, crewed by representatives of dozens of worlds. and powered by energy systems that no single species could have imagined. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Torres, now wearing the insignia of the Alliance Navigation Corps, "we're receiving surrender offers from 3 more Vorthan systems. They want to join the Alliance rather than fight." "Standard terms?" "Yes, Admiral. Complete autonomy for local species, shared technology exchanges, and protection from Imperial retaliation." Chun nodded. The Alliance had learned early that conquest and forced conversion were Vorthan methods. Their approach was different. Every world that joined did so voluntarily, and every species maintained its independence while contributing to the larger whole. "And the Emperor's response to our latest message?" "Still no reply to the peace offer, Admiral." Chen wasn't surprised. They had been sending peace proposals to the Vorthan Emperor for 3 months now. The terms were simple: end the policy of genocide, release all remaining slave worlds, and join the Galactic Alliance as equals rather than conquerors. In return, the Empire would be allowed to keep its core worlds and maintain its independence. So far, the Emperor had refused to even respond. Commander Zixthara, now serving as Alliance liaison to liberated Cathari colonies, joined Chun on the bridge. "Admiral, we've received word from the Cathari survivors scattered throughout Imperial space. They're requesting permission to join the liberation fleets." "How many?" "Nearly 1 million individuals on 17 different worlds. The Emperor has been holding them as hostages, but they're willing to fight their way out if we can provide support." Chun considered this. 1 million Cathari would significantly strengthen the Alliance's bioship capabilities, but it would also mean direct assault on heavily defended Imperial worlds. What does the bio-network think? Zixthara closed her eyes briefly, consulting the vast shared consciousness that now connected Cathari across the galaxy. "The network believes the time has come for final action. The Emperor will never accept peace terms. He would rather destroy everything than admit that cooperation is stronger than conquest." "And the other Alliance species?" "The Korath vote for war. The Tith vote for war. Even the peaceful Velans believe that sometimes force is necessary to stop greater violence. The newer species are following the lead of their liberators." Chun looked out at the starfield beyond the ship's windows. Somewhere out there, the Vorthan Emperor was making his own decisions about the future of the galaxy. She suspected those decisions would force the Alliance's hand. The answer came 3 days later. "Admiral," Torres called out urgently, "we're getting emergency transmissions from the health system. The Emperor has ordered the destruction of all remaining slave worlds. He's implementing what he's calling the final solution." Chun felt her blood turn cold. Rather than accept defeat, the Emperor had decided to destroy every species he couldn't control. It was genocide on a scale that would make everything the Vorthans had done before seem small. "How long do we have?" "Intelligence estimates 12 hours before the first extermination fleets reach their targets." Chun activated the Alliance communication system. "All ships, all worlds, emergency protocols. The Emperor has chosen to commit total genocide rather than accept peace. We're implementing Operation Liberation Dawn immediately." Across Alliance space, the largest fleet in galactic history began to move. 5,000 ships representing 43 different species, all united by a simple principle: no species had the right to destroy another. The final battle of the war lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Vorthan Empire existed only as a historical memory. But unlike the Empire's victims, the Vorthans themselves were not destroyed. Imperial worlds that surrendered were accepted into the Alliance. Former Imperial citizens who renounced genocide were welcomed as equals. Emperor Vorthkis, captured alive in his throne room, faced a choice that no Vorthan emperor had ever been offered: trial for war crimes, or exile to a peaceful world where he could live out his days without power. Why? He asked Admiral Chun as she stood in his former throne room. Why offer mercy to someone who tried to destroy you? Chun looked around at the magnificent room that had been the center of a genocidal empire. Representatives from dozens of species were already working together to convert it into a memorial for the empire's victims. Because, she said simply, that's the difference between us and you. You believed that strength came from destroying anyone who was different. We know that real strength comes from helping different people work together. 3 years later, the former Vorthan capital world hosted the first Galactic Council. Representatives from over 200 species gathered to establish laws that would govern interaction between civilizations. The first law they passed was simple. No species had the right to destroy another. Dr. Morrison, now director of the Galactic Medical Exchange, stood in what had once been the Emperor's throne room. The space had been converted into a medical research center where doctors from dozens of species